Hi everyone, I'm Brittany, the host of the Shed podcast and a health coach here at Shed. Today, I'm so excited to be interviewing an amazing Shed member who truly embodies what this journey is all about: commitment, patience, and dedication. Her coach says Kristin truly dug in and did the hard work. Kristin has been a Shed member since October, and not only has she hit her goal weight, but she has now entered this exciting new chapter of maintenance. In this episode, you'll hear how Kristin learned to manage stress eating, bored eating, quieted the food noise that used to control her day, and finally feels confident and in control of her choices. Her relationship with food has completely shifted, and she's here to share what that has looked like, the tools that helped, and what it means to be the real you on the other side of weight loss. Kristin, welcome to the show. We are so happy to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's go ahead and dive in. I want to kind of take it back to before Shed came into your life, before this journey kind of started to unfold. So this is probably around October 2024. What did your nutrition, exercise, and health look prior to starting with Shed?
Yeah, and I'll even take it back further than that. I've always struggled with my weight. Ever since I was a kid into a teenager to college, probably at my heaviest. And then when I got married in 2012, my husband and I decided to do Weight Watchers. I probably lost around 60 pounds. It was amazing. Was in really good shape, decided to run and was running half marathons, and then got pregnant with my daughter, and the weight just came right back on with that. And so after I had her, lost a little bit, had my son, and then again was almost at 200 pounds. And so decided to, that was in 2017. In 2018, we decided to join a boot camp type of facility, really enjoyed it. And really started to focus on the exercise. And I was doing well. I was losing maybe like 30 pounds. And I would go in between that weight of 170 to 150 and just really would go back and forth with the stress eating, the bored eating. So exercise wasn't the problem. I enjoy hiking. I enjoy going to the gym every day, working out. It was really that food that just I wasn't able to control it. And so in October, I had turned 42, and I had some pictures from a trip, and I just didn't like the way that I looked in them. I didn't like the way I was feeling. And so it was more of, how do I do this kickstart to really find where I want to go in this journey and where I want to end up and be the role model for my kids. And so I decided, really with my work and my HSA, and it just kind of popped up, and I was like, oh, let's try it. And so that was in October. And so I'm down about 40 pounds and really have been able to kind of know what is triggering to me, how to deal with stress, how to really, that boredom and peace, and in probably the best shape of my life.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing all of that, because I know so many people can relate to that story, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe we had some things in control at a period in our lives, but I always like to say life starts to happen, and you get busy, and you get married, and you have kids, and life just happens, and it gets really busy, and it's hard to prioritize yourself and your health. And it seems like since October, that's really that kind of step that you took for yourself, is to say, hey, I want to get things back to where I feel like myself again. You mentioned it was a trip that you took in around October that kind of sparked this, I want to do something about this.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me too that the want and the motivation to lose weight was definitely there for you, right? In exercise, you joined a boot camp, you were really committed to exercise and fitness and trying to lose weight. you mentioned the food aspect was really where you felt like there was room for improvement and would help you lose that weight that you really wanted to lose. Tell me a little bit about, you mentioned not really feeling like you had control over food.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what that felt like, what you were experiencing with food back around October and even
Yeah.
prior to that.
I would say I'm always been, if I'm busy and I keep going, I don't really worry about food. But I've always enjoyed eating. I've always enjoyed drinking. And so it just became, if I was in the day, I could go hours without eating. But then as soon as with my job, as soon as it like died down, I could then just sit down and eat and not eat food that was filling. I would just eat the bag of chips that was there, or the candy that was there, or the cake that got left out. If it was baseball practice, volleyball practice, it's just easier than to swing by Chick-fil-A and grab dinner versus actually having a plan and meal planning of what it wanted to be. And so, and also then when my kids would go to bed and I was sitting on the couch watching TV, grab the bag of chips and sit down and eat it. And so I really didn't have control over that. I always justified, if I went to the gym, then I could eat whatever I wanted to. And that's not the case. And especially as you get older in your 40s, your body's changing constantly, your hormones are changing. And so really then being able to identify, are you hungry? No, you're not hungry. You don't need to eat that. Or if you are hungry, then what are your food options, and having those available, having that plan available for that. And I do believe that was the greatest thing about Shed, is that I really enjoyed the coaching aspect of it. I really enjoyed being able to sit and unpack some of those things that were holding me back, because everyone's story is so different. Everyone who struggled with their weight knows why they struggle with their weight. They know what they're doing wrong. And it's just those sometimes of well, why am I doing that? Because while Shed was amazing and it really kickstarted exactly where I wanted to be, and I'm so happy about it, I didn't want that to be my forever. I didn't want that to be like, I always needed that to maintain that.
Right. You wanted to work on those habits underneath the surface. And yeah, I think it's something that so many people can relate to as well, where they feel like it's just willpower. Like, don't grab the bag of chips, or, when you're eating or when you're watching TV, try not to eat anything. You've had your food for the day. I'm trying to lose weight. Or, during stressful situations, okay, this time I'm not going to go to the ice cream or to those treats to cope with the stress that I'm experiencing. Or sometimes we don't even know that we're doing it. And so for you, it seems like coaching really helped you dig deeper beneath like this willpower that maybe you thought you didn't have before, to find those triggers and to then come up with a plan, so that whenever those things happen, I have a game plan and I have something or a way that I can cope with these triggers, differently. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about how you have been able to cope with stress eating, the stressors of life, the busyness of life. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I go back to like the coaching piece that was really nice, is understanding me and understanding like what triggers I had, but even growing up the way I did and struggling with my weight my entire life, I always would be like, well, if I went and ran 5 miles, then I can have that piece of pizza. And it was really great to like unpack even that piece of it, because the diet is 80% of it. The exercise is 20% of it. And so knowing that you can, if you're a stress eater and you know what that is, like, yes, you have your healthy snacks, but it's not going to hurt you to have the handful of chips. It's having the handful and knowing that you're still allowing yourself to have that. It's still there for you. It's an option, and you don't want to deprive yourself of it, because if you deprive yourself of it, then you're binge eating it. And I think that was so important to fully come to terms with, because yes, I can have the willpower to say no, no, no for 20 days, but then day 21, I could throw it all out the window and eat everything in the pantry. And so at least then having that game plan of, you know what, I have got my cottage cheese, I've got my string cheese, but you know what? If I like having that sweet or salty snack when I'm sitting there on the couch, then it's bagged up individually and I can grab that one bag, and every night that's what I can look forward to. And so it's planning, I think it's even planning that out. What's really helped me is tracking. And so being able to track everything that I'm eating. So if it's, you're going out that day, I really then am self-conscious about, okay, making sure I'm sticking to my plan in breakfast, my snacks, my lunch, so that I can go out to eat and I'm not going to feel like I can only order the grilled chicken and the broccoli, because that's no fun. That's awful. And so I really think it's just planning has really helped me. That's been my key factor. And even within this maintenance period too, it's still continuing that coaching in one way or another. So whether it was like through Shed, or like where I go to the gym, I do focus meetings monthly with a trainer there and still get to work on that. Or it's finding a podcast or finding somebody in a community that struggles with the same thing you do. I really think that helps maintain and helps keep you consistent, because motivation will come and go, but consistency is going to keep you where you want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that piece of consistency, and something else you mentioned was this idea of moderation, right? So being consistent, not having these high highs and low lows where it's like eating broccoli and chicken and rice, the boring foods, the diet foods as we know them, followed by like maybe binges or that bored eating coming up or eating more than you would want. And consistency really is like, sure, it does go up and down a little bit, but it's not the high highs and the low lows. It's more just in the middle there. And it is very much that moderation is the key to consistency. You are able to grab a handful of chips. Chips are not bad in themselves. It's when we have those large quantities. And so something that I'm really pulling out from everything that you're saying in terms of what has worked well for you in terms of moderation and food in general is just this idea of mindful eating. I think you mentioned before, Shed, it was, I didn't really think about food much throughout the day, but when I had those moments of boredom or moments of stress, that is when I would overeat on a certain snack or that sort of thing. And so sometimes just bringing mindfulness into the way that we eat, and planning has been your form of mindfulness. Having certain pre-packaged, chip bags, or packing those healthy lunches to take with you for work, spending 5 extra minutes at night to prep for that next day. Sometimes that planning and that strategy is really what we need to set ourselves up for success. And it sounds like that has really been key for you.
100%. I do think that will. And I think for anyone who they lose the weight and then they start to either go off the medicine or hit that plateau, it really then is like, okay, well, this is the lifestyle change. And that's a big thing to take away from it, is that this is a lifestyle change. I want to be healthy for my kids, healthy for me, healthy for my future. And so it was what needed to change. And I mean, anyone with kids out there knows your kids want the bad foods and you're not going to deprive them of that. So if it's in the house, that's always a trigger too, right? Like, don't go to the pantry, don't do it. And so just having a plan of whether it's bagging it up or planning out in your day when you're going to have that treat, really has been beneficial. And so even when we go out to eat, it's not that you can't have anything. It's just more of then when you go out to eat, you order what you want. I ask for a to-go box right away and I put half of it in the box. So, or my daughter's at an age where it's like, well, let's just split this meal. So that way then you're not eating the whole thing and you don't even feel, it's not even a temptation to you anymore.
Yeah. That's why GLP-1s are amazing, because they are a tool, right? Like, they're not doing all the work for you. They are a tool to be able to develop some of these habits that maybe you should be splitting a meal or eating things in moderation, but before a GLP-1 that might feel impossible because of, this, that, and the other, right? Circumstances, how you grew up, the way that you think about food. But what GLP-1s do is they kind of raise that ceiling in order to create a lot of those habits. And how cool that as a mom with young kids, you are now displaying that, modeling that to them, that, chips are not bad. Maybe, as we get older, we learn how to moderate and to really add and focus on whole foods and healthy foods and nourishing foods, but there's no restriction in this household. And, you can enjoy ice cream or you can enjoy those chips. So it's so cool to see not only you building those habits and those tools, but also being able to model that for your kids as they grow
And I
up.
really think too, the way that our world is with social media and what we have access to, there's so many amazing people you can follow that have great recipes that are easy and simple. And that, I mean, for anyone who's tried different diet plans, I mean, I feel like I tried them all, is that like, did one where it was, you couldn't really eat food and it was awful. And I was like, no, that's not how life is. And so now it's, cottage cheese, what you can do with cottage cheese today is amazing, right? And so I think that's a nice thing too, is finding, the types of foods that you like and being able to have them, and then finding ways to either make them healthy or substitute maybe something into, like, swap something out so that it is a healthier option. I just think there's so many resources out there today that really can help people on that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to dive into when you kind of started taking a GLP-1 with Shed, and those first few weeks. I think people can be so nervous. They can also be excited. It's a little bit of this, like, so many different emotions going on. Tell me, how were you feeling starting? I can imagine you were a little bit excited just because you had a moment where it was like, I need to take action. I need to take this step. I can imagine there were also some nerves with, like, starting something new. Tell me a little bit about those first few weeks of being on a GLP-1.
I've had friends who were taking GLP-1s, and so everyone had something different to say. I had somebody who said she would keep a trash can by her desk because she would get so nauseous and throw up. Others who said, nope, everything's fine. So I think I can remember driving to work and saying I was having a protein shake, and I got through half of it. I was like, oh, I don't even want the rest of this. And I was like, oh, it's working already. So I didn't have horrible side effects at anything. My biggest one was I'm in Arizona, so it's very hot outside, even in October and November. And so sitting outside at my son's football games in the sun or going hiking in the sun, I would get very dizzy or very nauseous, but nothing where I ever got sick or I maybe had some headaches. But I did realize too, after maybe the third month, around November, December, I was definitely would have to force myself to eat something because you just don't think about it, like you're not hungry. And so it was really then being mindful, like make sure you have a protein bar or make sure you have cottage cheese or you have a string cheese or something that is a yogurt, something that's going to give you that protein as well as, the healthy fats that you needed. But then I really feel when I got to after the new year, probably around February, March, I started that was when I had hit where I wanted to really be. I think I had a few more pounds left to lose. It does start to come to a fact where you think it's not working anymore. And so you could be like, wait, I'm hungry. But then it's realizing, well, you've lost a lot of weight. And so your body has to go through an adjustment period there as well. And then there's that fear of, oh God, if I stop it, the weight's just going to come right back up again. So I really do think that it's definitely is a journey. And that's why I say it's been nice when you have a coach who can really answer those questions for you and help calm some of those nerves and help you develop that plan and do those check-ins with you. But then also that consistency piece. And so when you start to get higher in your dosage and you start to hit your weight where you're wanting to be and you do feel like you're hungry more, then tracking that, like knowing what your body's telling you.
Yeah. There's kind of levels to it all, right? Like that those first couple of months, it was just getting used to having maybe a smaller appetite. Maybe with your coach, you started to dig in a little bit into food and nutrition and those sorts of things. And as time goes on, you did an amazing job of listening to your body. And that's what, as a coach, I always encourage clients to do, is listen to your body. You know, if you're experiencing headaches or if you're experiencing nausea, that's your body trying to tell you something. And there's ways to kind of help to minimize some of those side effects in some cases, or we get you an appointment with a provider to kind of talk about dosage or those sorts of things. And so I think listening to your body, and then, yeah, once you get to close to that weight, sometimes things can start to hit the brakes a little bit because your body is like, okay, you know, I'm starting to get to that weight that I'm really feeling comfortable at, and that is maintainable for me in the long run. And that is like, I love that you and your coach kind of worked on refining some of the things and working on building that toolbox so that as maintenance comes up, you have those things where you feel confident going into maintenance. You have those things where you're like, okay, I got this. So yeah, I think that journey is very much, you know, having worked with hundreds of clients on GLP-1 medications, it's very similar in that sense of there's different phases, and it's all about listening to your body. I would love to talk a little bit about the actual weight loss itself. I think sometimes people have this idea that on a GLP-1 medication, you're going to lose, you know, 50 pounds in a month or two, and then you can stop and go live your life, and it's going to be great. And, you know, although I wish that we had a magic potion, our bodies just don't work like that. This GLP-1 medication doesn't work like that either. We want to lose the weight in a healthy and sustainable way. And so I would love a little bit of insight for our audience into how much weight were you losing, you know, week by week? Were you weighing yourself? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
I do think it's going to vary on you and who you are. Like I said, I work out 6 days a week. And so I think that also played a part into the weight loss. I lost a good amount probably in the first month. I probably lost probably 11 to 12 pounds in the first month of taking it, which is a lot and at a fast rate. So I believe I was down on Christmas. I had this goal number in my mind of like the day when I got married. And that was going to be 25 pounds. And so I was only off of it by 2 pounds, which a lot. I started in October, the beginning of October until December 25th. And so I hit my goal weight probably end of February, maybe end of March. So I really had October, November, December, January, February, March. So about 6 months, and lost about over 35 pounds. So that, you know, your first month, I think your first 2 months, you lose more just because you're shocking your body. You're shocking your routine. You're shocking what you're used to. And then it's going to go off slower because you're now your body's becoming more adapted to it. You're becoming more familiar. Your body's adapting to that medication. And then you're also starting to change your habits a little bit, right? Because we know that when you lose that weight, you're going to change then another habit, whether it's drinking more water and switching out alcohol for water, or you're going to start to move your body more. And so you're going to start exercising or walking or going to the gym and lifting weights. So I do think that the weight just starts to go a little bit slower. And I would say I would then average, you know, 1 pound to 2 pounds a week, and then going down to even half a pound. And there'd be weeks where you lost nothing. And that just happens because your hormones change, or your body's off, or as a woman, you're having your period, whatever it may be. So I do think that you can't just go off the number of your scale, because then I also like going back to different weight loss programs, but like there's non-scale victories where you could wear pants that you could never wear before. You could fit into those clothes that have been sitting in your closet for years, or you tried a new meal that was maybe never something you ever wanted to try before, but you really enjoyed it because it had healthier options to it. So I do think there's a lot of also non-scale victories, and not just the number on the scale, that really keep you motivated to keep going.
Yeah. And we need those for like that deeper why and thinking long-term maintenance. It's like there needs to be something bigger than the scale, right? Feeling better, being a good model for your kids, feeling a little bit more like you and what you've always envisioned for yourself in terms of health, or how you look at yourself in a photo, or those sorts of things too, or the clothes, the pants that you're wearing and those sorts of things. So yeah, I think non-scale wins are fantastic. I think losing like anywhere we say from half of a pound to 1.5 pounds is good. It does differ because people are doing different lifestyle changes. You were already exercising 6 times a week. It's like that has a leg up on itself. So it varies. And I think it can be confusing sometimes when we're reading things online. And so part of why we love interviewing, different members is because everybody has a different
Yeah.
story. And so everyone can find that, okay, this might vary. I'm going to be open-minded to this journey, but also kind of get a gauge of like where I should be and what maybe
Hmm.
possibly might be happening. Speaking of like successes, non-scale victories, scale victories, all of those fun things, what do you feel has been your biggest success, whether it's on the scale, off the scale, in your life, through this journey?
Um, oh, that's a hard one. I definitely think that I feel the best I've ever felt about about me in just so many ways. And so it's not just, yes, my clothes, I had to get new clothes, but it's like going to the gym and feeling like, oh, yep, I can do push-ups on my toes. I don't have to worry about my weight. I can do the pull-ups because I'm not pulling up as much body fat as I was before. So I'm in the best shape of my life. I'm sleeping better. So I'm able to do I have more energy throughout the day. So whether that's at work or at home or being able to then do stuff with my family. So I think there's so many positive lifestyle changes that come with losing weight. You feel better about who you are. You feel confident. You are, we're going into summer. Yep. Try the two-piece bathing suit, which I never would have done. Still not there yet. But I mean, it's definitely though a confidence thing too, where you're like, I can look myself in the mirror and be proud of where I am. We do getting back into running. It was running 3 miles. Last December of 2023, it took me 39 minutes to run a 5K, and I just did one a few weeks ago and it took me 29 minutes. Like being able to say, look at the growth that I've come in a year or a year and a half, is really, it's that motivation, that dopamine in your brain. That's like, it's not just about a medication. It really is like, I want to be healthy and I want to enjoy my life.
Yeah. That is so cool. A 10-minute difference
10 minutes,
in
yeah.
a matter of, yeah, a couple, maybe a year and a
A year,
half,
yeah.
2 years. That's so cool. And it sounds like running is a big part of your life. It
Mhm.
sounds like even back when you and your
It's a
husband first got
love-hate
married.
relationship.
Yes, you're like, sometimes I love you, sometimes I hate
Yeah.
you. But that's so cool. And it's definitely something that I can tell you're very proud of, which
Yeah.
is awesome. On the flip side of that,
Hmm.
what were challenges? I know, like towards the end when you were approaching your goal weight, you had a little bit of like a slowdown. Some weeks you didn't lose any weight at all. If that was your challenge, or if you had any other challenges, I would like to also show the other side of this, where it's like sometimes it does come with ups and downs
Hmm.
throughout the journey. What were those challenges for you, and how did you navigate
Yeah.
those?
I do think it's it's a double-edged sword when you lose weight. I can honestly say, like, when people say, "Oh, you look so good. You've lost so much weight. What are you doing?" You're like, "Oh, well, I didn't look good before. Thanks." Or was I really so bad? Like that this is becoming definitely noticeable. So sometimes that can just play with your mind a little bit, and so it doesn't just being able to be like, well, nope, look how far you've come. Focus on your wins. And then two, I think the challenge for me really when I hit that goal weight, it really was the now what, because I don't want to go back to where I was, and so I didn't want it to be you just stop this medication and boom, now you're going back to everything that you were. And so it really it still is, I think, on a daily thing. It's still something you just have to be conscious about. You still have to be aware of it, and especially when people say you've lost so much weight, you look so good, and then you are so afraid of going back because they obviously notice the change, right? So then you are like, I don't want to disappoint myself. I don't want to disappoint other people. I don't want everyone's going to notice if I gain 3 pounds because my clothes are going to look too bad on me. And so I definitely think that's always a struggle I will have. But now as too, for me, it's like we're going into summer, we have vacation. So now I'm being removed from my comfort zone where I have my gym, I have my community, I have my meal prep, I have my planning, and now you're going out of town. So it's, oh, okay, now you're going out to eat more. You don't have access to the gym maybe. So how are you going to make sure you're staying active? What happens if I gain 5 pounds on vacation? How am I going to get that back off again? So I think too, that's a real struggle for me, just because I've now focus so much on planning ahead and focus so much on making sure I'm set up for success that when I'm taking my comfort zone away, it really starts to worry like, oh goodness, I don't want to fall back down that rabbit hole. And then being in the reality of talking to someone about it has been great, because someone said to me, you're going to a beach where you're going to be running around and swimming and jumping, and that is exercise. Play with your kids is still exercise. Go for a walk. Move your body. That is exercise. It's not about, don't feel guilty about a 5-day vacation, because that's not the rest of your life. That is a snippet in time, and you have to enjoy that. And so it's like you have these struggles, but then being able to find someone you really can talk to who will then guide you on that, on what you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's crucial. I went through my own weight loss journey, several years ago, and I struggled with that too. Like, being out of your comfort zone is scary, because you have these things that have gotten you to where you are today, that when those get taken away from you, it only makes sense in your mind that, well, then I'm going to revert back to, especially in a vacation situation when I'm eating whatever and, having a good time and letting loose a little bit. But what you just described is the key principle there, which is adaptation. And adaptation is the absolute key to consistency long term with weight loss and healthy habits. And so, even you mentioned one of the big things that you've taken away from this experience and like working with your coach is planning. And so, knowing how to plan for those situations, but just in an adaptive way, in a different way. And so you gave a great example of running around with your kids, swimming in the ocean. It's still activity, and it's still exercise, waking up early and going on a nice, sunrise walk with your family and exploring the city that you're vacationing in and the beach and the outdoors. That is still movement. And sometimes, like, we have such an all or nothing mentality, and sometimes we can live right in that gray area for a certain period of time until we can get back into those routines. So yeah, it's so cool to see your mindset shift around that. What used to be maybe a little bit all or nothing is now, okay, I see this in a different way, and I'm able to adapt even when that environment is taking it away from me.
And I think that's just the big thing, is knowing, like, just speak it out loud, because we all think it in our heads, and then being able to just say it out loud and have somebody problem solve it with you.
Yeah. I know. In my coaching rooms, it's sometimes just brainstorming of like, okay, what do we have going on? What are we afraid of? And how can we work together to like work through some of these things? Okay, so I think now I would love to kind of dive into maintenance. I know we've touched on it a lot, and I think people have a good idea of how you're feeling about maintenance, some of the tools that you're taking into your maintenance phase. A question that I always ask my clients who are starting to kind of phase off of their GLP-1 into that maintenance phase is, if you could rate your confidence level on a scale from 0 to 10, how confident do you feel that you are going to be able to maintain this weight loss for the rest of your life?
I would say today I'm at a 7. Some days I might be higher or lower. But I would definitely say a 7, more of just because I'm approaching vacation season, and that's really what my biggest hurdle right now. And so I really think that if you ask me in 8 weeks, it might be hopefully higher, because I'll come out on the other side successful of that. But I do think it's a 7, more just because I've put some really good things in place that even as you come off the medicine and you do start to realize that you are hungry, it's really then making sure if I'm willing to put it in my mouth, I'm willing to track it. And it's not even tracking like a point system or something like that. It's just really being aware of like, I track macros. So those really looking at carbs, fat, and protein, and really then identifying what are the protein snacks, because there are really good protein snacks out there that you can just keep and have them available to you. So I do think that the maintenance piece it's so scary, especially when you feel so good about yourself and you're feeling so confident and so successful. But then also, once going back to, that wasn't the end goal. The end goal is to change your lifestyle. So if you're changing your lifestyle, is it worth it to eat that right now? If the answer is yes, then eat it right now. If the answer is no, then don't do it. And once again, though, just also don't deprive yourself of those things, because you still have to live your life. I am still going to go to the beach and have a cocktail, and I'm not going to feel bad about it, because that's life. Now, you don't need to have 18 cocktails. You can have one or two and enjoy it, and then be done and switch it out for a sparkling water. I think it's just knowing that you still can have those things, and knowing that what was your why to begin with? Why did you decide to do this? And then is that worth more than what your why was?
Yeah. Those tools that are within your toolbox are coming up, and you're still practicing them, in this maintenance phase, because it has only been, not even a year since you took this step and since you started making these changes. So it does make sense where it's like, okay, I have a lot of confidence because I've gotten myself this far and I've built a lifestyle from this, and I have the habits. I've exercised, for so long, and I have all these things that I'm doing, but sinking it in deeper is what you're focused on right now. And having this challenge of summer coming up and having vacations and being out of your environment is kind of this good challenge that you're like, I think I'm confident, but I'm excited. And I know in 8 weeks that I'm going to
be fine.
Exactly. Okay, last question for you, Kristin. So at Shed, our motto is be the real you. And like I said in the beginning, in the intro, you are a great example of stepping into that real version of you. And it is that identity of how you want to feel and what really feels authentically you in your body and those sorts of things. And so I would love to know, through this experience, what does being the real you mean to you?
True to the person I always knew I could be. And knowing that I could be the person who was a great role model for my kids. I knew I could be the person who had healthy options and ate healthier and could move more and be active and be the mom that my kids were proud to introduce to their friends. And so it was always, you knew who that person was, that image in your head, who you always wanted to be. And now being able to look in the mirror and saying, I matched that. And I did that. And that was hard work, but I'm now proud, and look at, like, we're able to match those two. And I think that's when you know the real you, is that those two kind of come together.
Yeah. It's almost like this image, I love that example, lives within you, and you have this identity within you, but it's hidden a little bit sometimes. And whenever you start to show it and show it and show it, it starts to feel more authentically you. Yeah. And I can see that just shining from you, which is so cool.
I'm really tired today, so.
I know, it's probably been a long week for you. Okay, Kristin, well, thank you so much for sharing your story, for giving the audience the ins and the outs of what you have experienced through this journey with Shed and where you are today. We are so, so happy for you. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of the Shed podcast. We will see you here next week.